This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.
Congratulations! You've chosen conversations that dare, that go boldly where few will. I am Harry Almy, and this is the Almy Alternative on Otago Access Radio. Welcome back, my little potato shavings. It's me, Harry Almy, back again with the Almy Alternative. Today, we've hit rock bottom. We've brought on an esteemed member of OUSA's executive. Oh, actually, I've got my schedule mixed up. It's Troy Gibbons.
Good day, Harry. How are you?
Excellent. Lovely to have you on my podcast.
Thank you.
Troy Gibbons is you're the representative for finance and strategy on the OUSA executive.
That is correct. I am the finance and strategy officer.
Oh, the official title. Do you put it on your CV, sort of Mr. BA?
Oh, yes, straight there.
Straight there, people. And just walk us through because I know off the top of my head that position means that you're sort of joint second place in the great mighty empire that is OUSA, or as I called it back in first year, USA.
USA. Oh, I think that is a very contentious topic of its name. But yeah, so I am... Technically, we're all equals, but the president is like the prime minister, first among equals. But there is quite a clear hierarchy. So, yeah, I work quite closely with Daniel, the president, and Flynn, the politics rep, probably who I work closest with because I oversee internal stuff to OUSA, so all the budgeting, all the commercial boards and stuff like that we have. But I also oversee all the political and strategic campaigns that we lead.
Yes. And just to clear it up for listeners, because I'm so deep in the OUSA bubble that oftentimes I forget to explain what on earth OUSA is. It's the Otago University Students Association. I had to work myself through their acronyms, and it's basically, it's a student association, but it's really the union for students at the University of Otago, isn't it?
Yes. So this is also a contentious topic you've got there, Harry. So
contentious with who?
OUSA executives for a long time have been struggling to figure out what OUSA actually is. As you know, VSM, voluntary student membership, came in 2011, and student associations kind of forgot what they were doing. And so for a while, the founding principle of OUSA was the rugby club and the debate society, and they formed it so they could have a social space for students on campus, and they built a common room. I think it's now the Allen Hall, which is the theatre department, I believe, which is your territory. And then it slowly devolved into a political thing around Vietnam, where students were like, we could use this as a political force. And obviously with the introduction of fees in, 86, it became extremely political. And then until about 2008-ish, I want to say, then it stopped being political. Well, not stopped being political, but it kind of eased it back and started focusing on the services that it provided students and focused on its welfare within. And after VSM, it's kind of more focused on services than politics. But this current executive are trying to flip that on its head and get back to our political roots.
Yes, and there's a protest coming up, which I shall not be attending, but, some students do enjoy a good bit of study. So that's just the brief of our lovely individual. And you've developed a bit of a interest. You've been listening to my podcast. Here we have a fully fledged fan, and we're not even that far in for listeners.
Yes. No, I have listened to 2 and a bit episodes. I listened to the one with Damien, I listened to one with Neve, and part of the one with Flynn, but I realised I could just talk to Flynn. So there you go.
There we go. No, yeah, we've not had a member of the National Party on yet, have we?
No, I think you could get... I don't know who you could get. Maybe Matthew French for Tyree. He's always keen to get out and about, but... I'd like to see you get Michael Laws on here.
He's a good chuckle. I Matthew French seemed to be under the impression that being in the same room with Damien O'Connor, I'd been lucky to have left alive from my one and only conversation with him. But I think if I was in the room with Michael Laws, I think I perhaps need to level up a little bit before I take on the. Would we call him a martyr? I know Shane Jones has taken on that strange and confusing title because he's a strange and confusing man.
Yeah, I don't know what would you call Michael Laws. some would call him a ghost, and they thought, oh my gosh, he's
some
reappeared.
have, some have.
But no, he's a very, very skilled political operator. I don't agree with his politics, but much like his boss, Mr. Peters, they've learnt the game very well, and they're masters at playing it. And that is my favourite side of politics, is people that can really play the game, both electorally, but also when it comes to operating within Parliament and knowing the rules.
And you've had some insights into the games. You've had an interesting past within the National Party, haven't you?
Adjacent to National Party throughout my high school years. During coming from a small rural community, it was the choice for me because it was people showing up, and that's all I've ever cared about in politics, was people showing up. And as you can imagine, my area's been a write-off for sort of left-wing parties since a long time, and I always had a quite a strong connection to Robert Muldoon's domestic economic policy, and I thought that's the kind of economic policy I want. I've quickly realised that is no longer present in the National Party, much like the current Labour Party. It's not what it once was, and so now I find myself in the political wilderness, so to speak, and I bounce around very often.
Yes. I think famously, we giggle about it. Troy Gibbons, or what's he in today?
Exactly.
Your
right.
bank balance with the amount of party memberships you resign and then take out must be incredible. Sorry, what rural region is that? Just for the benefit of
Stratford, Taranaki. So
Taranaki
the North
King
Island.
Country, is it?
Yes. So they're right on the borders of the New Plymouth, Taranaki King Country, and Wanganui electorates, which are all National Party electorates currently. During the Red Wave, 2 of them went Labour. But yes, very solid blue territory.
Jim Bolger land.
Probably farmers, I imagine why. But this election, I'm very excited for the Labour candidate in the Wanganui electorate, my former drama teacher and List MP Angela Roberts.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm very excited, and I think she is what a community like mine needs from a Labour MP. Very present, and like I say, it's all about someone showing up, and Angela has been on the ground in our area working hard for years, and she's just it's nice to see that again. I haven't paid much attention to the New Plymouth race. I don't know who the Labour candidate is there, but the National Party candidate, David McLeod, has a lot of respect in his electorate, and I feel so sorry for whoever the Labour candidate is in King Country.
Sorry, who was the candidate in your election again? Because I hadn't heard of them before. They're a current List MP,
No, they were a List MP from 2020-2023.
Like the rest of the country.
Like the rest of the country. And they were vice president of the Labour Party at one point, and former president, I believe, of the NZPPTA. Strong union.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think that's one of the undervalued, and I don't think in my circle of things, something you appreciate or encounter, but one of the appreciated aspects of university. Everyone's moaning. Everyone's like, oh, God, it's like the woke. It's the inner city. It's like a bubble. But it does draw upon people from all across the country, from the North Island, from more conservative rural areas that you have the luxury of sort of mingling with. You can the rural city divide is certainly real in New Zealand, because you don't to take your phrase, show up for each other. You don't rub shoulders very often. It's a big country.
And I think when the right wing always complain, right wing parties particularly complain that students are the woke lefties and the woke liberals, but also I think a part of it is that students appreciate when someone actually cares. And so like we see the people I consistently see around campus. I mean, obviously I'm quite close with Rachel and Fran, but they're always there and always willing to show up. And I think that's extremely important from an MP for those who aren't political people, those aren't engaged in politics. They want to know that if they ever had to be, that their politicians are easy to access. And I think that's the most important part of our democracy is that, and I think a beautiful thing about New Zealand democracy is you can easily access MPs in this country. It is very easy to go and meet them and talk to them. And I think, maybe the right wing need to stop writing off cities and writing off electorates, and I think that could be the same for Labour and the Greens. Stop writing off those rural areas and just campaign across the whole country.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sort of put my finger to the pulse with those electorates. Oh, we're going into the politics show now. We're going into the politics show. You are a finance student, aren't you?
I am accounting student and PPE, politics, philosophy and economics, but mainly accounting.
Oh my goodness, listeners, he's PPE. Right, brilliant. I've just actually put on a bet for you to be the next Prime Minister, though you may have to get into a time machine to 1964 Britain. That's incredible.
I think so.
Go on, be honest with me, mate. Why did you pick PPE?
Well, originally I was studying finance and politics. Funnily enough, because I've always been a politics nerd. I mean, you know me, Harry. I love it. It's my addiction. I think my LinkedIn banner is part-time accounting student, full-time political tragic. But no, I got into PPE because I was taking an economics paper in first year, just out of interest and just to build up some skill. And then I was talking to Dr. Trent Smith and Dr. Lisa Ellis, and they said, we've got a degree that combines politics and economics. And I was like, oh yeah, and that adds philosophy. And then I switched from finance to accounting because calculus is too hard.
It's been my observation, because I'm working on some articles for Critic, and it was interesting to me that a lot of people who are now very politically important were on campus in the 90s about roughly the same time. People like Todd Stevenson. Mm-hmm. He was Campus Act president, I think 1995 or 1996.
Yes, it sounds about right.
Yes, and obviously you've got Victor Billow, who was just like, as far as I can tell, he didn't study. He just wrote letters to the editor, which I think
that's good enough study, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Letters to the editor for Critic and to the Otago Daily Times. But neither did the twain meet, I suppose, is the point. Despite the fact that both kind of made their features on Critic, neither did the twain meet. But you've had that link between the world of the Burns Building and world of the business school. How is life over at the business school? Is it strange and confusing and alien?
I've always enjoyed accounting, but I've never enjoyed the job, I suppose. I've enjoyed the field, but not the job. I mean, obviously, you look where accounting can lead you is into these massive conglomerates, big, they call it the backbone of the capitalist machine, your consultants, your bankers, your wealth advisors and stuff like that. And I've never really seen myself fitting into that. I mean, at the moment, I don't really have a choice because a job's a job in this economy. But I think it's a bit disappointing with a lot of my fellow commerce students aren't politically engaged. And I think they should be. And I think everyone should be politically engaged, but particularly commerce students, because, well, especially ones with economic knowledge, that's extremely useful to politics. And ones with economic degrees, translating those to friends and family who don't. I mean, economics and stuff like budget is made complicated on purpose so regular people can't understand it. And so everybody sits down and they watch the budget when it comes out, and then they get the headline. They get, oh, okay, we've got free this, or they've gotten rid of, say, for example, fees free, and that was the headline, and everyone just took that. No one sat down and actually read the budget. No, it's hard to understand. It's big numbers. It's convoluted acronyms. It's just very confusing. And I think that's where commerce students serve a duty to others, is that it's our job to explain it to other people. Just like if I was going and they were talking about something medical, I'd talk to my friends who are in the medical fields and stuff, because you need to keep everyone in the loop, especially when it comes to something as important as the economy. I know, for example, they're talking about bringing in a capital gains tax at the Labour Party, and straight away members of my family are like, oh no, big scary capital gains tax. But if they actually looked at the capital gains tax and analysed it, it doesn't affect hardly anyone in New Zealand. It's a very weak capital gains tax. And so it's trying to help people break through the scare and the noise.
Can't please anyone. No, they demanded a capital gains tax. You give them one, and then they moan and moan and moan. I'd give up on personally. We'll get onto because that was very interesting what you said about the budget, and you might be able to explain it to poor little can't do times tables me. But just going back to that culture within the business school, so it's a very apolitical culture. It's very sort of people in hoodies just sort of sitting down doing the work. Is it sort of like very casual drinky? Like what is the camaraderie? What is the culture of the cadre of the business school?
I never really fit into the business crowd, I'd say, and that probably comes from being a political tragic. But it's very, if you imagine your stereotypical Castle Street person. Guys and girls on Castle Street partying on Tuesday, Thursday nights, and they're here to have a good time, which is a completely acceptable form of university. Not my kind of university, and so they're just very disconnected. They live in their bubble, and they see university as a time to new experiences and have a lot of fun. Because obviously there's a lot less responsibility than go out to the working force. You can't be drinking on Thursday when you've got work tomorrow. So it's very much like that. It's very laid back. It's very relaxed.
Fantastic. So regarding the budget, are there any you've hinted a little bit there. Are there any headlines that perhaps escaped the notice besides the scrapping of fees free? Because I vaguely remember that they made a lot of hoo-ha about. God, I sympathise with the sort of communication buzzos over there, because you've got the Nat communication buzzos and they say record amounts of health spending, and then you've got the sort of opposition buzzos who've got to say, well, no, it's actually. What are some headlines we've perhaps missed from the latest election year budget?
Yeah, well, I find it always funny is people, parties are always quickly to claim that they've increased spending, which is natural because costs have gone up. So of course you're going to spend more when your stuff costs more, and like to operate at the same level, it's going to cost more next year, and so the number looks bigger, but there's no actual change to the service. And parties are very quick to claim that, oh, look at me, I've invested an extra $3 billion in healthcare. Okay, your $3 billion is to keep us exactly where we were. One thing that I think people really need to pay attention to is defence spending. I think it's $3 billion in extra capital expenses for defence. Real big push to defence to bring us. And I think this signals our move towards Five Eyes, CANZIC, stuff like that, AUKUS, and aligning with the US foreign policy. And I mean, we've seen that through, our foreign minister is extremely US aligned. And with a breakdown in the liberal world order and the rules-based order, and obviously we see America now not playing by the rules that it set up many years ago, and I mean they never have, but especially at the moment, this government has really aligned with America on this, and New Zealand has always been very unique in its foreign policy. I mean, obviously we started with nuclear free and we told America to go and so we have... I think this is a reconciliation almost with America with this increased spending, and I think voters should be very aware of that because I know even some very conservative people agree with our stances on foreign policy. And I mean, obviously we've seen the conversation re-spark up, should we repeal nuclear free? And I think 70% of New Zealand in an opinion poll said, no thank you.
To put an alternative viewpoint to that, I suppose, because here's a little bit of a scoop. One potential person I was going to have on the podcast, but then had to pull out for a variety of reasons, was going to come on and viciously defend the increases to defence spending, because it is called the ALMI alternative, much as I'm consistently failing to find anything other than the, 5 members of Alliance so far. I suppose the arguments that he was privately putting to me was that America is sort of pulling back from its commitments to essentially be the big dad of countries like Australia, of Britain, of New Zealand and Europe. And in a situation where New Zealand is a bit more independent in its foreign policy and dealing with the realities of America pulling away, would be us taking on a bit more responsibility with defence. There is also the issue of our ageing frigates. There is also, I think he was putting to me, exciting opportunities with homegrown businesses regarding drones. I mean, I don't know what the budget said they were going to spend on defence. But you just said it. All they did was earmark a big. I love politicians and their round numbers. Oh, dog! How do they come up with them? Do you think there might be a world in which they actually meet what they want to achieve with that $5 billion and say $3 billion, but they're like, nah, keep going.
Round up.
That is. What you said to me sort of fits nicely within a cushy slogan-y narrative. You know, it's easy to say peace, not police. That's not the actual slogan, but that's just what's come to head. What do you think about all of that? Those spending priorities.
I think it's weak from the New Zealand government. I think, goodness, is that we've always, since '84, told America that just because you're here to protect us, this is not a one-sided thing. Just because you're offering us protection doesn't mean we're going to do whatever you want. And I think now that the rules-based order has collapsed, I think there is a kind of Mark Carney line to take where it is aligning with states like Canada, not really Australia at the moment because they're still quite aligned with America, but places like Canada that are saying, we're not going over here to China, Russia, India and their foreign policy, and we're not going here. We're going to sit in the middle, and because we still believe in the institution of a rules-based order. And I mean, my criticisms of the UN have been widely regarded because you don't have to play by the rules when you can just write them off every time you don't like them. But I think a New Zealand government, and I think a next foreign minister, at the stage it's probably still going to be Mr. Peters, but needs to kind of buck up their ideas and go, you know what? We don't want to do this. America's already pulled the funding anyway. There's no point in us trying to cozy up to them even more. We've seen this kind of isolationist, but also at the same time, globalist politics from Trump. It's a very confusing world to be in, where he's like, I'm not getting involved in anything. And then he goes and invades other countries just for a little bit of weekend pleasure.
For a giggle, yeah.
Yeah, for a giggle. So I think we cannot align with a country that is that volatile. I mean, who knows one day, Canada was its closest ally, and then he said, you know what, I'm going to annex you. I don't exactly want to align with a country which I don't know what they're going to do next.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it's not a good look for the government right off the bat of America demanding that they increase defence spending and the tariffs, and then, of course, increasing defence spending. I'd be very interested to have Chris Pink on this podcast. So if Chris Pink, you're listening to this podcast and you've gotten into the massive sort of human-sized shoes of Judith Collins, give me a call. So you don't think the opposition are going to win this election? You think the next foreign minister, Winston Peters, should pull finger and stop his pro-Americanism? That's your advice. You've got no advice to Vashini Waters, the slated foreign minister for the Labour Party, assuming, of course, the Green Party don't have any foreign minister candidates. I wouldn't want to presume.
Well, here's my the political oracle I am. I think Labour will win the party vote. They will be the largest party in Parliament. But I think due to the relationship between Winston and Chris Hipkins, I think there is no chance that Winston, and I mean, never predict what Winston's going to do next because then you're a losing man. But I think he will definitely stay aligned. And I think I think Luxon is quite weak as a party leader. I think he's very good internal to the party, but a coalition leader. And I think he will be willing to give up more than, say, Hipkins would in a coalition agreement. And, Winston only wants his one thing. He wants his deputy PM and he wants his foreign minister. And he'll probably give Shane a bit of mining and energy and stuff like that. And maybe our friend Michael a bit of broadcasting and tertiary. That's all he wants. As long as Winston gets his foreign affairs, I mean, we've seen it in every coalition negotiation, or maybe even treasurer, finance minister if he's feeling super demanding. He will align with National. I think National are more willing to give it up.
2026 election looking ever more like the 1996 election. And of course, before this podcast, you and me were having a hearty little complaint that we don't do electorate polling in New Zealand as opposed to other countries because goodness knows. At the moment, there are polls, dear listeners, which have 61 to the government and 59 to the opposition. It's the most closely fought election at the moment since Ruth Richardson pushed the great big red button that said "be unpopular." It's the most closely fought election since then. But that 59 number, dear listeners, is counting the 4 currently held electorate seats of Te Pāti Māori. And considering their current strategy is vote for us if you want to do a little trick, if you want to do a little party trick, not on the merit of any of their sort of achievements as a representative, it's looking ever unlikely, isn't it, that 59 is 59.
The system is beautiful and complex. I mean, I actually hate MMP, as you know, Harry. I'm a first past the post kind of guy. But there's a beauty in the complexity of the system that if Te Pāti Māori poorly in the party vote and that all goes to Labour, but they keep those electorates, then you get these overhang seats and it makes it easy for the government. My 5 electorates to watch this election, the Waitaki electorate.
Waitaki.
You've got Miles Michael and Damien O'Connor. You've got probably the right wing of every party. Then you've got Te Tai Tonga. I know this is a race that you and I talk about frequently. It'll be interesting to see what Takuta does next. I've met the Green Party candidate, very capable candidate, so that will also be interesting, a little spanner in the works. Then Te Tai Tukurau with Maria Meno, that's also going to be extremely interesting and pivotal. Tamaki, we've seen the favoured son of the National Party, James Christmas, and Chris Finlayson's sidekick jump ship to ACT. You've got the radical socialist, that is Max Harris, and then you've got, I can't remember the National Party candidate's name, but...
there we go, the kiss of death.
The kiss of death. And I mean, this was Muldoon's seat, for goodness sake. You can't, and I think, much like what almost happened with Helen Clark and Jacinda's seat in 2023, I mean, the blow to a party to lose a seat that was your leader's seat is quite hard. How many have I given you there? I've given you 4. I'll give you another one. Another interesting one that I like to watch all the time is Dunedin. And I know just because we're here, but it has all the keys to be a Green Party seat, and I don't know why the Greens aren't winning it. It is, you've got Wellington, both Wellington ones in Auckland Central. Dunedin fits every criteria that they do. You've got a large student population, you've got strong working class, historical labour roots, and you've got... being ignored economically by historical governments for about the past 20 years. And I think both Labour and National on that front. So it is right for the Greens taking, but obviously Rachel is extremely well loved in the community. She's always out there, but it will be very interesting to see if the reduction, obviously we're going to see across the country a reduction in National Party votes. And I think that will harm the Greens in a way, because obviously most people are going national to Labour, or National New Zealand First. They're not going national to the Greens. But it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I have in my sort of attempt to assume the dispassion which we try and assume when we're history students, as opposed to when we're sort of being opinionated with. I've also sort of meditated on the Dunedin seat as well. I think part of the reason is to your frustration, MMP, and the fact of enlarged electorates. The seats that we've seen the Greens perform well in roughly correspond to really leafy, inner city, essentially university seats. And while Dunedin is a university seat, is a university city, it is large enough that the already quite transient student population who will be voting elsewhere in the 2026 election probably won't be massively voting in the electorates here. We also have Dunedin, the electorate, going far north of where you and I would probably say Dunedin, the city, was. There were articles published when that boundary was established, almost speculating that Labour would lose the seat because it was moving into these more rural regions. So not only do we have, I think, a more older, more Labour-leaning suburb sector, we also have a more rural area who, if they're going to vote for anyone, it's going to be the National Party or the Labour Party. Yeah. There have been other things as well. I'm a big fan of Critic Te Arahi, as you and I both know. And it's interesting, I've just me and a few other people have just glanced across some previous critic censuses, and it'll interest you to know that the Greens in the critic census had a high in 2023 of 57%, and the Labour Party low of 10%. In this most recent census, which actually has more respondents than usual, the Greens are at 47% and the Labour Party at 27% support. Now, of course, that's not like... When you take that one number in 2026, that's not sort of like massive. It's still a campus that is predominantly behind the Green Party. But it was also in 3 years a slide of 10% and an increase of 17%. I do want to also acknowledge that in the poll, the census, New Zealand First had a small uptick in the student population and opportunity. An uptick. So it's clear that the Greens on campus are not just losing support to the Labour Party, but that's just my diagnosis. You obviously went to the Green Party campaign launch.
Yep.
I have a question for you. Do you think the Green Party campaign is branching out from Studentville? Do you think they're pivoting into a place where they can capture votes outside of Studentville?
I think that is where the perfect diagnosis, Harry, is that their problem is that they're only focusing on Studentville. Working class voters are perfect for the Green Party. I mean, we've seen their most recent three, and I think the Greens are on an absolute heater with their policies at the moment. Automatic union membership. Taking that from the Labour Party and running that as your own. I mean, you look like the party of the working class. And we've seen Kiwi Power announced, was that 2 days ago, a public-owned state power company, which you know me, Harry, I love that idea. And I think the Greens, in particular, are putting forward these really good policies for working class people, but they're still focusing on the students. Students at the moment don't really care about compulsory union membership. They don't care. No one's like me. No one cares about state-owned assets anymore. But I think they need to focus on those working class people and peeling the union support away from the Labour Party if they want to succeed. I think they are the most pro-worker party. I mean, you know my slogan, that Labour should give the name back. But I think we need to look at the real diagnosis. And you're right, it's that I mean, for goodness sake, their campaign launch was on the university campus. Right in the centre of the campus. But I also think the Greens this year have a very strong slate of candidates. I think Francisco Hernandez has it easy to put to the people that he is the hardest working MP, and I would tend to agree. Definitely the hardest working opposition MP. I mean, you look at all the stats of questions asked, minutes spoken in the House, and I think he could take that to the people saying, I work hard for you. But no, it'll be very interesting to watch. But, I mean, Rachel is a very charismatic and very down-to-earth politician, and that is the recipe for extremely successful in electoral politics, as you know.
Allegedly, Rachel Brooking disputes those stats with most spoken hours because she reckons that it was conducted before she had to basically spend several all-nighters fighting the Resource Management Act reform. But, you know, that is just heard on the grapevine. Hey, dear lovely listeners. We're spoiled for candidates.
A bit of healthy competition between two former OUSA presidents.
Yes, it's refreshing to know that not every member of OUSA is sort of like an ultra left of the Tony Benn variety, a reference only Troy Gibbons could possibly get. This is the daring thing to suggest, and this will be a good segue into another thing. Daring that only on the ALMI alternative would a student suggest this. I wonder how much appeal sort of compulsory. I know you can opt out, sort of like you're automatically enrolled to a union. I wonder how much that actually gets with the modern working class. I'm not really, and I want to have some trade unionists on. I want to talk to people from the PSA. I admit fully that I don't know, but it's trying to reckon with what it is at the moment, because we both accept, you and I, Troy, that trade unions are good for workers, but not everyone thinks that. I've had a few casual jobs where I've thought, right, I'm not actually going to do many jobs here. Oh, here's an offer to join a union. You know, I'm going to do like 3 jobs here. I actually want to keep that little bit of the paycheck. Up in the sort of leafy middle class suburb, or in the trades, they're not unionised jobs. I went to Brisbane recently, and there is some small anger that essentially the unions can turn off and on the rail whenever they. This is how it was phrased. Just sort of feel like wanting a pay rise. Not everyone is keen on unions. Obviously, that's an attitude whipped up by the National Party, but you're quite keen on unions because you've got this Muldoonist spirit. The torch is held by one man and one man alone.
I mean, it's just quite funny. Muldoon was very famously anti-union, and this is probably one of the few areas where I disagree with it. I mean, social policy aside. Interesting social policy that man had. Horrible social policy. But anyway, unions are the only tool under the system that workers can have to advance their rights. And I think I brought this up to Flynn Nisbet, my fellow executive member, last night, is that the NZCTU should organise a general strike. I said, I think it's about 500,000 people going on strike, teachers, doctors, nurses, etc. But then you've got the flow-on effect of people will have to stay home because they have to look after their kids because they can't go to school. My mum is a proud union member of the NZEI. She is a support staff at a primary school, and she is a proud member of her union. And I think I look at the way that big government ignores workers. And I say, if big government's going to do it, big business will do it. And it is very clear. I mean, I was talking to a organiser for the Unite union at the Green Party launch event about their living wage campaign. And I think this compulsory, unfortunately, under this economic climate, it's hard to care about politics. I mean, people are worried about if they can pay their bills. They're not worried about
high unemployment. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're focused on what that is happening to them. But I think that will have a positive benefit if this bill does get passed, because I think it's more likely that people will not want to opt out of their union because you have to fill out all that paperwork and going through the opt-out process. And I think then slowly it will build the strength of unions, and then by the time the next election rolls around, because I'm always a believer that governments will always serve a second term. I mean, obviously we've only seen one case in the past 50 years of a one-term government, and so I think over that 6-year period, as people will come to appreciate what their unions can do for them, the strength of the unions will increase, and it will slowly start to reverse that idea that unions don't serve me. And I know a lot of people go, oh, why do I want to give $15 out of my paycheck every week to my union? I don't see any benefit to that. Which it is quite sad, because that $15 can go a long way, especially for working families. And I think, call me conspiratorial here, is that the system is designed that way. It is designed so that these people living paycheck to paycheck can't advance their interests further because they don't have time to worry about politics.
Fantastic. Well, There's all that movability within the job market. I don't want to spend too much of my words in a day on the Green Party. Never do. But I do also just want to smallly put to you the question of, why do you think no unions have affiliated with the Green Party? Because obviously, I mean, who knows? Maybe they will tomorrow. Lots of unions are affiliated with the Labour Party, and Alliance, which has just made a resurgence this year, has barely flexed its muscles, barely tried, and gotten the affiliation of a trade union. Are the Greens doomed forever to be the affluent inner city young people? I
think the Greens have the opportunity party curse, is that they're intellectual. Like the Greens are probably the most fact-based party in Parliament at the moment. They look at the numbers, they look at the statistics, and that's all they operate on. In terms of economic policy, which is the perfect way to do it, but it's not the popular way to do it. And I think for a long time, it's been students is obviously where a base of their support came from. You kind of, and then old school environmentalists, and then they started transitioning into more social justice spaces, and you started to encamp a bit more left wing voters that care about the well-being of everyone in this country. And economically, I think that kind of gets drowned out. I mean, when the only headlines that Green Party get are about social issues these days. The economic policy is always kind of scuffed to the side. And I think students have a lot of time on their hands, so they can get interested in left-wing politics and green stuff. But the key is, especially for, I don't want to call them socialists because I don't think they identify as them, I don't want to mislabel them, but left-wing politics is you have to translate it to the working class. And I think we see that in New York City with Zoran Mamdani, who I think is the best political operator of the past 25 years in any country and anywhere in the world. He has taken complex left-wing ideas that have historically been extremely unpopular in America and shown that they can work, and he's translated them. And I think that comes through having an extremely charismatic, down-to-earth leader. He's just like the rest of us. He's funny, he's young, he's energetic, and you can tell he actually has a genuine care. And I think there's this brand with the Greens is that they're very tied to their leader, and for justified or not, Chloe Swarbrick is not very popular among working-class, more conservative worker kind of people, very agitator-based, whereas Zoran's more of a unifying figure. And I think a Green leader that could bring the party together would be very helpful. Like Marama, oh my gosh, what's her last name? Davidson. I was going to say Dave. Oh my goodness, what a mind fart. Has that ability to unify people behind something, and you can see her as wanting to work together. And I mean, like I talked to my father, you can imagine a rural farmer from Taranaki. He always said that he has a lot of respect for people like Rod Donald, Jeanette Fitzsimmons, that classic Green, but Jim Anderton. My mum loves Jim Anderton because they had that ability. They weren't those agitators. They had an ability to bring people together. And I think that's what the Greens need if they're going to appeal to working people. But also, working people don't have the time to sit down and read through policy, so it's up to the Green Party to translate it to.
To become a party of power, not just protest. We'll move on now. As an obvious, I mean, people in the know will suddenly realise who I am and the sort of person I am. I miss you, James Shaw. Robert Muldoon. Goodness me, you speak his name in Dunedin and it's like saying the name of Satan in a church. Now, of course, you don't like his social policy, which is a polite way of putting it. What else do you not like about him? Just so we can clear this up so you don't get hate mail in the afterwards. I mean, I know there's some people who don't think you should be able to neatly cleave things apart, but...
I think... obviously Muldoon's economic policy, I think had the best economic policy of any Prime Minister that New Zealand's ever had, and I would easily rank him as a top 3 Prime Minister of all time. Controversial take. I think his style of politics wasn't good, but it was, as a political nerd, it's great, you know. It's at the time I probably would have hated it, I mean, my Prime Minister. But now I look back and I see, in 1978 he punched a protester. That to me is hilarious. I think that's just a funny way of governing. And I mean, his style of, I'm going to do whatever I want and you fall in line. And obviously there's that great story of Marilyn Waring running up to his office on the night before he called the snap election, and he hated when people ate while talking to him, and she just sat there chewing on an apple, and it just made him irate. And that's funny to me. But I think he is very similar to another political figure I'm very interested in, Joe Bjelke-Petersen. He was the Premier of Queensland for about 20 years, and they called him like an autocratic dictator, and many people referred to Muldoon as that. But I think that style is what I like from a leader, is that get stuff done. Don't worry about all these other things that are going on. You just got to get through it and get stuff done. But yeah, the economic policy, Harry, great stuff. I mean, like I say, after 84, both Labour and National sold out their policies and don't stand for what their founding principles were anymore. But I know that might annoy you a little bit there.
Well, it's interesting. My mind always goes to the quote of Eric Hobsbawm, who was a Marxist, so obviously far to the left of me, when he was arguing with Michael Foot, and he said, The year is 1983, not 1945. If one stayed true to everyone's founding principles, we'd still be the rugby club and the debating society, wouldn't we? But let's just dig down into what exactly you mean by Muldoon's economic policy, because I disagree with you on a lot of things, but also I'm not actually passionately disagreeing with you. It's more just the fact that, like, Roger Douglas, if he was sitting here, I know, there we go, I've staked his heart. If he was sat here, he'd say he inherited one of the worst economies in New Zealand. It was, from what I can recall, a situation where essentially tax was at the whim of the finance minister, like, right, new year, all of the taxes have changed, and billions of debt on think big projects, and inflation up the wahoo, as you would put, as I would put it. What was his economic policy?
Well, I think investing in the future is the easiest way I can frame Muldoon's economic policy. I mean, we look at think big. You drive up the Waitaki River, every dam there was part of the Think Big scheme. You've got the Clyde Dam, the Manawapori Dam was first thought up, that's in Fiordland, was first thought up under Think Big. Then you had the massive rail projects, you had massive state infrastructure projects, and the Ministry of Works, bring it back, please. And I think we look at those assets now, we've since sold them off. The value that these assets are worth, considered to what we paid for them, is exponentially more. And we know privatisation does not work of assets. I mean, when Key privatised the power companies in, 2011, 2012, he set in a sunset clause for about 6 years that they couldn't raise prices, which was very smart political planning, because he probably knew he was going to be gone by then. And then so when Jacinda took over, the prices went and skyrocketed, and they're still skyrocketing, because now these power companies, they don't have any incentive to people. And I think there are some assets, power, water, transport, supermarkets is a controversial one that I have. These are goods that don't need to be gouging us for profit. And I think his policy at the time did cause a lot of economic harm. I mean, you had Carless days, but his policy was good for the future. And I think the same with Kirk, and you think the same with Holyoake and Holland, and Michael Joseph Savage in particular with his state housing policy. is that these prime ministers sat there and they said it's going to be tough for my term, but in 30 years' time, and I mean, you look, Savage spent billions and billions on state housing. State housing is the greatest thing that New Zealand has ever done, and I think it is beautiful what we did with it, and now we've gutted and sold it all off. And I think it's just that long-term thinking of, I'm going to spend all this money now, but if I don't spend that money now, in 10 years' time it's going to be double the cost. I mean, we look at infrastructure projects now. The Christchurch Stadium, first budgeted at $300 million, ended up costing $600 million because there was delays. I think we got good value out of those things, and I would like to see us have that ownership back. But also economic policy-wise, in terms of inflation stuff, people give Muldoon a lot of flack because inflation was at 12% and unemployment was also at 8%, and we're in stagflation. But that was something we saw across the entire world due to the oil crisis in '73. And I think he handled it very well. His idea of making New Zealand energy independent, I think if we had more knowledge of renewable energy at the time, he would have taken a different route. But I look at hydropower, it was a great move, reducing our reliance on fossil fuels. I mean, first environmentalist prime minister, if you want to say that. And reducing our reliance on fossil fuels is important, and I'd like to see us 100% renewable very soon, because then we're no longer at the whims of the oil markets in the globe. And I think there was a beauty in that.
Right, we've got about 10 minutes left and we're going to race through two topics. Today, just before this podcast, because this podcast will be airing fresh off the presses on Thursday, but it's being recorded just the day before on Wednesday, Benedict Ong has posted something, and it's always very confusing, hard to decipher, so could you just help me decipher this? I've not got it in front of me, but I'm just paraphrasing. Breaking news, as all of his posts are, young student heroes have been denied a spot at a recent DCC meeting because there is no space. I, Benedict Ong, God of the universe, can see that there is space. So what's going on? He wouldn't happen to be talking about you. I mean, maybe he was talking about, our intrepid soldiers from the International Socialist Voting Party.
I have been called many things over my time, but I don't think I've ever been referred to as a hero. But yes, he was talking about me. He was talking about Flynn, myself and Daniel. We were coming to support his motion for the council to support fees free and bringing it back. As he refers to us as the city's most important economic driver and constituent. We got there. There was also a group of climate liberation people waiting there, and they were also refused entry because there was no space. We respected the decision left. The climate one still went in, but I don't think it was a very good justification. I mean, it's a massive room, and I think the problem is that the table's too big. But we weren't allowed in. And
do we know what the result of that? Because they were tabling a motion whether to support sort of your petition, OUSA's petition for fee.
No, it was Benedict himself. We were there to support Benedict.
Yeah. Goodness me. Sorry, I just shiver up my spine. Do we know the outcome?
No, I don't know yet. But as soon as I find out, I'm sure it will be on my Facebook as either a hooray or a nay. But I think it wouldn't cost the council anything, so I don't see why they wouldn't do it. I mean,
I'd be surprised if the council sort of wanted to give much airtime to Benedict Ong.
I think that is because it's attached to Benedict.
Well, one interpretation is that this is a trick. This is sort of like you're on a unicycle and you're doing. Is it serious?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm never very involved in local government because I don't really care that much. I'm not here in Dunedin long term, but I think this council has a very interesting. It's probably the most factionalised council I've seen, with a very clear left, a clear centre, and a very clear hard right. I'd call it hard right.
I'd agree.
So it would be very interesting, and I'm sure that councillors Lund, Gaylor and Vandervis will find a reason not to support it, but they should.
My advice to the hard right of the council, who I know love to listen into podcasts at OAR, is always that seeing as there is a centre on council, that they should really put some effort into bridge building, because they're in the minority. They want to be in the majority. I'm sure they will aspire to and maybe achieve electing a hard right. But this is my favourite word, and the word no one likes to hear: compromise. Or maybe don't name call if you want people to support your things, but that's just an opinion from no one, from a meagre constituent, one of few people who actually votes in these sorts of things. Right, we're coming up to 6 minutes left, so we're getting into the hot section. We're going to need some quick, snappy responses from Troy Gibbons.
Awesome.
Favourite top 5 Prime Ministers of New Zealand?
Robert Muldoon.
No, number 1.
Number 2, Norman Kirk. Number 3, Michael Joseph Savage. Number 4, this is my most controversial take here, John Key. And number 5, a little well-known one, Jack Marshall.
Yeah, he was Prime Minister for like 5 days and like tuppence, wasn't he? He succeeded Hollyoake.
Yes, he did succeed Hollyoake and lost to Big Norm.
Big Norm.
But I feel like even the best political operators could lose to Big Norm.
Top 5 members of Labour's current caucus, if you can name 5. I know I struggle at times.
Duncan Webb.
Duncan Webb, number 1. He soon won't be an MP, so we're off to a good start.
Kieran McAnulty. Goodness. Damien O'Connor. Greg O'Connor. And I'll say our lovely Rachel Brooking.
Fantastic. Right, 2 out of 5 there are not going to be MPs after the next election. Top 5 members of the National Party caucus.
Erica Stanford. James Meagher. Ooh, you like to test me, don't you, Harry? We'll go Joseph Mooney, David McLeod, and who else is performing very well at the moment? I'll give it to Bishop.
Fantastic. Not many members of the Green Party caucus, so I think I'll spare you. Underappreciated study spot on campus. Undervalued. What's your secret study spot?
I study in my office, but I would say I like main common room, actually, because I talk while I study.
Yes, I know. I noticed that has been a popular spot. Right, fantastic. You've got say like a minute or so to say whatever you want to the listeners, and then we'll head off.
Well, just thank you very much for having me, Harry. You know, we love to have our political conversations. And if anyone out there is listening and they want to talk about anything politics, particularly the 1990s, or Robert Muldoon, I'm always up for a conversation.
Oh, sorry. Nearly forgot. You thinking about, you want to soft launch your OUSA presidency on the ALMI alternative?
No, I've got jobs lined up in the mighty Brisbane and Queensland.
Mighty Brisbane.
Because the pay's a lot better there. The weather is nicer, the classic student life cycle, but I'm sure that there'll be some great candidates.
There we go. The surest sign he will run, he's ruled it out unequivocally. the lovely life cycle of a student at the University of Otago. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Troy. It's always a joy to bring our usual entertaining conversations to the air.
Oh, we should do this more often.
Fantastic. That's all, folks.
Gad, what an enigma. Every day the horizon of our imagination grows. I can't wait for tomorrow. You can find more episodes of the ALMI Alternative on oar.org.nz, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. See you soon, dear listeners.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.